Hello everyone, we are now in Chapter 2. This is Chapter 2, 2.1, Number Properties. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to use number properties. You'll be able to identify number properties in equations, and you'll be able to use number properties to write equivalent expressions. All right, now let's move on to our first section, our key idea. Here's some things that we need to know and learn. Commutative property is right here. Let me use a bigger highlighter. What is the commutative property? The commutative property is the changing, all right, so it's the changing the order of addends and factors. What does that mean? So the commutative property means that we can add and subtract in different orders, right? So let's think about this. 3 plus 5 is what? 8. But what is 5 plus 3? Isn't that the exact same thing as 8? So it doesn't matter which way you add it, 3 plus 5 or 5 plus 3, it's still going to get you 8. That is the commutative property. It doesn't matter which way you do it. And the same thing with multiplication. 3 times 5 is 15, and then 5 times 3 is also 15. So this one also doesn't matter which way you multiply it or add it, because it will stay the exact same answer. Now we have the associative property. What is the let's use yellow. What is the associative property? The associative property is the changing the groups of addends and factors. Also, it doesn't change the sum either, okay? So let me explain that. So before we changed, we could reverse the numbers. We can put 3 or 5 first, and it didn't change anything. Same thing over here. So if we have 2 plus 4 plus 1, right? 2 plus 4 is 6, and 6 plus 1 is 7, right? And PEMDAS, or parentheses, tells us to do that first, right? So here's a parenthesis. 2 plus 4 gives you 6, and 6 plus 1 gives us 7. But with the associative property, that means we can change our parentheses, because it still won't change the answer, right? 4 plus 1 is 5, and 5 plus 2 is still 7, and it still got us the exact same answer no matter which way we did it. If we put a parentheses between 2 and 4 or 4 and 1, it still got us the exact same answer. So the commutative property and the associative property does not change the answer. All right, so the same thing here, right? 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 times 1 is still 8. So our answer for this problem is 8. But what about if we do it the other way? 4 times 1 is 4, and then 4 times 2 still gets us 8. So with the commutative property, we're adding parentheses this time, all right? So the commutative property, we can change the numbers. The associative property, we are starting to add parentheses. Now, the next one, the addition property of 0. So we're adding something of 0. It sounds like we're adding 0. The additional property of 0 means that the sum means everything together, and the number 0 is that number. So let's think about this. 8 plus 0 will always be just this number, right? Because anything plus 0 is just going to be that specific number. So 8 plus 0 is still going to give you 8. That is the addition property of 0. Now let's do the next one. The multiplication property of 0 and 1. Well, we know that anything multiplied by 0 is going to get us 0, no matter what. 4 times 0, 5 times 0, 10 times 0, it's going to get us 0. And then any number multiplied by 1 is just going to give me that specific number, right? So let's take a look. We know 5 times 0, or anything times 0, will get us 0. So that's the property of 0. And then multiplication property of 0. And then anything multiplied by 1 is that number. So that's the multiplication property of 1. All right, and our last one. What is the distributive property? This one might be look like it's the hardest one, but it is not. So the distributive property, what is it? Well, that's multiplying the sum or the difference. Sometimes it might be subtraction, right? Sum is addition, difference is subtraction, by a number. So multiplying by a number is, so multiplying a sum or difference by a number is the same as multiplying each number in the sum or difference. Okay, so I'll give you guys an example of what that means. Okay, now moving forward, I want you guys to remember that parentheses usually means multiplication, but that'll make more sense in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. All right, so let's think about the distributive property. 3 plus 1 is what? 4. And then 4 times 4 will get us what? 16, right? So the answer for this one right here is 16. We are taking this 4 and distributing it. I like to call this rainbow. Why? Because once you guys get to 8th grade, we're going to have a bunch of these. There's going to be like 5 or 6 of these problems, and it starts to look like a rainbow. So every once in a while, you might hear me in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade call this the rainbow method, okay? Now, what exactly does this mean? Well, what happens if we didn't have parentheses? Would our answer still be the same? Let's see. Or sorry, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. What I actually meant is we want to distribute this. So remember, we said rainbows mean multiplication, right? So that would be 4 times 3 and then 4 times 1. Because that's going to get us the exact same answer. So 4 times 3 we know is 12. And then 4 times 1 is 4. And 12 plus 4 gets us 16. The same thing if we didn't do the distributive property here and we did parentheses first. We know 3 plus 1 is 4. And 4 times 4 is 16. Okay. Now this is going to make a lot more sense once we do a lot of practice problems. So in this first example, we're going to be talking about the commutative property, right? The commutative property says we can change the order. So let's see, what is the order right now? We have 32 plus 29 plus 8. It should be the exact same thing as 29. So we have 29, we have 8, and what would go here right in the middle would be 32. That would get us the exact same answer. So that is the commutative property. Okay, let's try another one. Now we're going to use the distributive property. All that means is we're going to try and break up some numbers. So let's see. This is the original problem. 6 times 38. Now this might look hard, but all I want to do is I want to break up this 38 into 2 easy numbers for us to multiply. So what I want to do is I'm thinking maybe 30 plus 8, because then I can multiply a little bit easier. So let's see. I'm going to put 6 times 30 plus 6 times 8, and I can add these ones together. So I know 6 times 3 is 18. I'm going to add the 0. That's 180. And then 6 times 8 is 48. And all I need to do now is add this together. So 180 plus 48 gives us, well, let's see, 8 plus 0 is 8. 4 plus 8 is 12. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. So our answer for this problem is 228. Let's do. In the show and grow section, we are going to use some properties to answer this. So 9 times 15 equals, right, equals the same thing as 15 times what? 9. Which property is the one where we can move things around? That's the, right, change the order. That's the commutative property. So it says identify the property shown. So that is the commutative property. All right, so we're done with that one. Let's try another one. It says use the distributive property, right? We want to draw some rainbows. So we're going to have 8 to find. So we have to find the answers. We have 8 times, and I'm going to break up 49. What 2 numbers can I use to break up 49? Well, I'm going to do 40 plus 9. That's easier for me to find out. So now I'm just going to do 8 times 40 plus 8 times 9. So let's figure this out. I know 8 times 4 is 32. I'm going to add the 0, so that's 320. Plus, I know 8 times 9 is 72. So all I need to do now is add these two together. So 320 plus 72. 2 plus 0 is 2. 7 plus 2 is 9. And 3 is all by itself. So the answer for this problem is 392. Let's do a few more show and grow problems. Nope, never mind. In this section, apply and grow, we are going to be using a few of the other properties. So all of a sudden, I already know that anything multiplied by 1 is going to be that number. So what times 1 will get me 17? Well, that's 17, right? 1 times 17 is 17. And which property is that? That's going to be the multiplication property of what? 1. So let's identify it. That's the multiplication property of 1. Well, what is this one? Let's see. 248 plus 0 will get us what? 248. And that's going to be the, let's see, well, addition property of 0. So make sure we label that. Addition property of 0. All right, let's try a few other ones. So let's see what they're doing this time. So we have 23 plus 145 plus 7. Looks like we're changing the order up. So we have 23, we have 7, and then what goes in this space? Well, that'll be 145. What is a property called when we can move things around? That's going to be the commutative property. When we can change the order. So commutative, we can change the order. Okay. Here's another one. We have, oops, my bad. We have 3 times 10 plus 2 equals the same thing as 3 times 10. Well, let's see, what is 10 plus 2? 12. So let's see, 3 times 10 and then 3 times 2, because we are going to be using rainbows, right? So 3 times 10 is right here. And then we have 3 times 2, which is right here. All right, now we just need to solve. 3 times 10 is 30. 3 times 2 is 6. 30 plus 6 is 36. And which property is this? This is called the distributive property. Okay. Let's try a few more of these. It says use the distributive property to find the product. So we want to break up this 97. How do we break up this 97? Well, let's think of two easy numbers. So we're going to do 5 times, I think 90 is a good one, plus 7. So now I just want to do the distributive property. So 5 times 90 and then 5 times 7. Remember, I like to call this the rainbow because it looks like rainbows. So let's rewrite it. 5 times 90 plus 5 times 7. Now let's multiply. Let's see. 5 times 9 is 45. Add the 0. Plus, I know 5 times 7 is 35. We just need to add these together now. So 450 plus 35. Let's add them. 5 plus 0 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. 4 with nothing is just 485. All right, and we use the distributive property. Let's try another one. Well, it looks like they put the 83 front this time. Doesn't matter. It's the exact same thing. So let's break up this big number into two easier numbers for us to add. So let's see. 7 times, I'm going to do 80 plus 3. Remember, we want to do the distributive property, some rainbows. So let's draw some rainbows. We know the rainbows mean multiplication. So let's just do our multiplication. 7 times 80 plus 7 times 3. So let's do our multiplication. Let's see. I know 7 times 8 is 56. We're going to add our 0. Plus 7 times 3 is 21. And now we just need to add everything together. So 560 plus 21. 1 plus 0 is 1. 6 plus 2 is 8. And 5 plus nothing is 581. All right. Last step, it says use the property to find the sum or product. So we have to find the sum or product. Identify the property we used. So let's see. This number right here looks kind of hard for us to solve. I wish there was something we could do to make this a little bit easier. And there is. What I'm going to do is I'm going to erase those parentheses, and I'm going to do this. Why do you think I did 4 plus 6? Well, if we know our addition properties, I know 4 plus 6 is what? 10. That's an easy number to add. And then adding 10 to numbers is super easy, right? So 10 plus 27 is 37. Which property was this one? When I can change parentheses, that's going to be the, let's go back and look really quick. So change the groupings. When we change the groupings, those are parentheses. So that is the associative property. All right, the associative property. All right, let's try another one. Well, 5 times 49 times 0. I already saw this right here, the 0. So anything times 0 is going to give me what? 0. So this is the multiplication property of what? Multiplication property of 0. All right, let's try another one. Let's see. 11 plus 16 plus 89. I bet you if I add these two together first, so 11 plus 89 plus 16. Why would I do 11 plus 89? Let's think about this. Isn't it easier for us to add? So if I add 1 plus 10, that would get us close to what? 100. And when I can change the order, what is that called? That is called the commutative property. All right? I can move stuff around. So 11 plus 89 is 100. And then 100 plus 16 will get us what? 116. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how we use addition, multiplication, division, subtraction.